Perfect. I'm getting better at pressing that button. Let me know if you can hear me because we go through. I can hear you, Muffin. Lord, that is so cute. Thanks, Honey Drop. Perfect. Glad that everybody can hear me. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to charge the momentum that we started with last week. Man, you all gave some incredible feedback as it related to this teaching from last week. And so we definitely do not want to lose that momentum. I think I'm going to try and be still this week, but I'm not going to promise. No, obviously not, because Malika is over here calling me muffin. I ain't never been called a muffin. I'm hoping that I don't look like a muffin, but okay, yes. Um, we're going to try to just really spend about an hour, just an hour, 60 minutes. It didn't feel like an hour last week, right? It went so quick, and there was just so much momentum around what we believe that God was sharing with us. So I just say that God give us grace tonight as we are connected together. Each person is vital and important in this experience, and we don't know who else will join us, but we are grateful to be here today. So I'm grateful for all of you. Hope everybody had a good day. Pipe in, let me know how your day was, how your day was, how your day was. Was it good? Was it not good? Was it, nah, people was a mess. Lots of rain. We had all of that down here today. Um, yeah, it's been a good day. We are preparing to spend some time with our family, and we're actually leaving Thursday. But the challenge of packing, man, I don't know what's worse, the actual travel itself or the preparation to travel. So my mind is just in all kinds of things that need to be settled before I feel, let me just say that, what I feel needs to be settled before we leave. So, I've got this whole cleaning frenzy. I started 2 new classes yesterday that I haven't even looked at yet. Trying to make sure that the people that needed to see me this week were well. What else? Was preparing for this tonight and just wanting to add some more content. I'm on the planning committee for what's going to take place in North Carolina for us. Yeah, so so there's a whole bunch of things going on. And there've been obviously people fussing at us for leaving. So y'all just gonna have to wait because this is my caveat, when everybody goes on vacation, I'm encouraging and supporting and saying, have a great time. Now, I don't seem to be getting that same response back. I don't know what that is, but I want to be able to reap what I sow. I want to be able to reap what I sow. That's all I'm going to say. And yes, thank you for grace. Thank you. Thank you for grace. So we are preparing for that and all of those things, but definitely you did not want to, well, subtly, that I had this whole experience with my husband today, right? Because I did not want to cancel life class tonight. Did not. But my day was getting so full. The week was full. I was like, well, maybe I can get away with grabbing that hour. So I have to put mental energy into it, prepare for it, yada, yada, yada. Ooh, but my husband got me today. Nobody knew that I was thinking about it. But when I talked to him and was just sharing my thoughts about maybe not, um, yeah, he got me really good together. So I'm here tonight. So yes, I'm here with you. I want to just bring some highlight to some of the announcements. Let's kind of share them a little bit and then see. For those of you, where am I at? For those of you who are joining okay. For those of you who are joining the weight loss situation, there's information here. And so if it is you, I think a lot of you responded and said, yes, it's me. I want to be a part of it. We've got prayer points. Yep, we've got that. Notes from me. Um, yeah, this mental wealth webinar Saturday was crazy. If you missed it, sorry. It was so good. It was. Next one is coming up for August. We will put the flyer out and it will be scheduled. But if you missed that one, you should be mad at yourself. You really should. That thing was hot. Oh my gosh. And we had great attendance. And so was really grateful for that. In-person worship, September 2020. Keep an eye out for that. Weight loss. Listen, we shedding weight with Coach Kira and we got the details. And so this starts August 1st, 2020. 2021 through October 31st, 2021. And so here's the information. We can email this to you so that you can know just simple information that you can follow. This is how we will keep accountability. Coach Kira, she can't wave, but I know she's waving in the background. Put this whole simple format together so that people would not feel overwhelmed, that you don't have to do things and it's so stringent. We want to have fun with this weight loss experience. So we're going to be weighing in and doing measurements. And so we want people to take pictures of their feet on the scale, because y'all know y'all put a toe on the scale and act like you lost 100 pounds in one setting, right? So you can't cheat. So you got to do that. Then you're going to take measurements of your chest, arms, waist, hips, thighs. Everybody loses weight differently, and we register that. So we're going to gauge both. So we have two prizes, one for the individual that loses the most weight, one for the individual that loses the most inches. Okay. We're going to track steps and all of that through the Nike app. We're going to weigh in on one time every month, not every week, and all of that other stuff that will put pressure on people, right? And then by the time we get to the end, we will track people's measurements and their weight to see who will win. The prizes are, for most weight loss, a $100 gift card. For most inches lost, a $100 gift card. So no cold turkey. We want to do things in moderation, and we want everybody to enjoy the experience. So that's that. Yep. So I'm hoping that people will listen. Whether you feel like, there she goes, she waving her hand. Just even if you feel like you don't need to lose weight, but you want to get in a little bit more shape, certainly you can join in the challenge. If you are interested, what I want you to do is type your email address in this chat. What I will do is I will make sure, Kira, be in the background writing down the email addresses so that I can send information. I will send you that slide that showed all of the information so that you can have it. It will come from the church's email address. So please do that. The WhatsApp link will be in that slide or that sheet of information as well. So you can wait to receive all of the information so that you can do everything that you need to do in order to stay accountable for that. Okay, so give us grace there with that. Chat in your email addresses, and or we could actually do texting, because I think I copied it from a long text with that information as well. So just let us know if you want it. Say me. We'll send it one of two ways. Say me, and we can get that information to you, okay? All right. Listen, we are back in this teaching for, let me make sure I have it because I got something else up. And I want to have this up. There we go. Perfect, perfect. All right, let's get back to this because I really had to, I was getting a car wash today and I sat there getting some opportunity for just for this, just to get some more information. Over the years, I've learned to teach in series expressions so that we're not overwhelmed with information. It's hard. You can do that on a Sunday morning or whatever other day when you're just preaching a general message that empowers. But in order to teach, you have to take time to do that. I'm not going to say that I've always been the greatest teacher per se, but I have learned to really work information slowly and surely so that we can all be on the same page as it relates to what we get from this experience. And so we're going to chart this. We're going to work through this information. And if you have any questions, I want you to chat them on the spot or type the raise your hand piece, because I really want to make sure that we are on the same page with this. Before we do that, before we even get there, good learning about, oh my Lord. Um, Before we get there, I want to know what you believe or what you feel today from last week till this week, what your particular highlights were. Share them with the group. Talk about your highlights from last week's teaching, and we'll keep moving forward. And while you're doing that, grab your Bibles, whether they're technology or physical Bibles. I want to use the scriptures tonight because there is a particular piece that grabbed my attention in addition to all of the pieces that we talked about before. So want to bring reference, want to bring information, want to bring confirmations, not necessarily confirmation from the Holy Spirit, but confirmation from the story of the scriptures, which will make all of the information make a little bit more sense. How about that? Okay, so if you've got highlight information, I want you to share it. I want you to type it in. I'll give you a few seconds for that. What exactly blessed you, knocked your socks off, put fire up under your belt from last week's scenario? Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm waiting on y'all. I'm assuming y'all still hear me. I'm going to assume that that is correct. We get back to that. We'll start talking about, yep, basically don't sit on your butt when you have a good assumption, Mimi. Love that. Love that. Some more of you chat in and just let us know what spoke to you the most. And that to many might be the thing that speaks to them the most about fulfilling purpose assignment. Well, let me hit some highlights here while we are waiting. It really moved me and got me off my butt. I'm glad. That's good for a lot of different reasons. Not that you are a lazy individual. I don't even think that anybody is really lazy in that sense, but sometimes we lack direction. Sometimes we don't know how to appreciate or ascribe to what is around us. And because of that misinterpretation, because we don't have that kind of direction, we kind of sit waiting for things to happen, when in reality, there are some things that we can be doing that will help us move forward in the purpose of God individually for us, and understanding all of the things that we've been given. Yes, Lord, that we've been given in order to move about and move in. So we talked about terra firma. We are developed from the dust. And that statement came back to me today so clearly: to become more in relationship with the land. Yep, I'm currently in, and the lands I'm going to. Yes. Principality or philosophy that is governing right. Yes, love that. Thank you so much for that. That was a great highlight. We are developed from the dust, particles of the ground. And that was so interesting to me because I think automatically people assume that that just means dirt. But even when you look around your house and you look around and you are dusting your home and you see dust, dust is an energy. Where did dust come from? Have you ever really thought about that? They say that dust comes from human skin. It can come from animal activity. It can come from because it is a particle. It can come from anything, but mainly the dust that we are dusting away is coming from us. Have you even really thought about that? Right? Most things we don't appreciate because we don't know it. We have no understanding of it. So from dust particles you've come, to dust particles you shall return. So when people talk about that, you're returning to dirt, you're not necessarily returning to dirt, but we're formed in energy and you're returning back to energy. That mobility, that thing that moves around like dust. I hope somebody got it. I hope you got it. I hope you got it. We talked about the sons of Issachar, scientists, geologists, in relationship with their form. Somebody say that. I want to be more in relationship with myself. Everything that you see is literally just a reflection of yourself. It is in a different form. Here's how you understand that. Water has several different forms, but at its core base, it is still water. Ice is still water. Yep. It is just the frozen form of the liquid. And so we've got to see ourselves in different expressions or different forms. And when I understand that, I start to move in an appreciation of the different forms that I am or can become. Mm, yeah, that was good. I'm glad it was recorded so I could go back and listen to it, right? Yeah, so here's some of those systems. I removed a lot of the pictures, but this hurricane piece is a big deal. Something came back to me today, even as I was kind of meditating on this particular experience and the teaching. And I remember when we were in last hurricane, Hurricane Irma, and they talked about the reality of how big that hurricane was. I think it reached a Cat 5. And when they were talking about it, especially from the South Florida experience, those of you that are from here, you will know it or you will remember it if you paid attention to it. Most people were concerned that that was a manufactured storm, that thing grew so big that it had to be manipulated in order to grow that big. And I as I listened to it, I wondered about it. I said, oh my goodness, what was the purpose of this? And you had all kinds of ideas coming about. People felt like, okay, this storm was manipulated. It was scientifically made in order to produce something so that we could see what kind of destruction there would be. And if that was the truth, then the casualties were the risks that were inhibited or expected as a result of that, particular storm. Brianna asked, how was it manipulated though? Well, the manipulation, whether you like that word or not, manipulation in a sense is not a bad word. There are things that are being cooked up in the rooms of scientists all day long in order to determine what effects certain things have on our earth. And this is why, thank you, I feel strength right there. I felt it. Thank you for asking that question. The reason why we've got to really be conscious of this piece is not for a sake or a sense of fear, but we've got to understand that even when, and I'm getting ahead of myself in the slides, but I'm going to get there. When we talk about, even when the scriptures talk about have dominion over, the reality is that we're not trying to have dominion over something. We're really trying to come into concert with it or come into understanding of it or come into cooperation with it. And see, this is the thing that if we talk about this storm in particular, scientists for years, if you watch, have been launching situations like hurricane trackers. They'll send information in the middle of a hurricane in order to understand its ideology, understand how it moves, understand how it's developed, understand how it formed in order to, now why do you think that they're learning that? They're learning that so that they can manipulate it or replicate it in order to use it for its purposes. Now, dominion is an interesting thing because the way that you determine dominion would suggest that everything that God has given you is under your control. But it cannot be under your control if you don't understand how to control it. It can't be under your control if you refuse to understand its real purpose and how it's supposed to surround you in your purpose. You will never come to agreement or understanding of a thing, or rather dominion of a thing, if you fail to realize that these things have been, can be adjusted in order for them to affect a certain thing a different way. The same way that they grew this hurricane is the same way that they could have diminished it, but somebody in power chose not to. Woo! That's why dominion in the wrong hands is ineffective. Here's the indictment to the church, people of God, beloved. That's why we are powerless, because there is no understanding of the reality or the stretch of our dominion authority. It is not to control weather systems, or it's not to control the earth. As a matter of fact, in and of itself, the earth has its own mechanism of understanding, of alignment. It understands when there is a need for rain. It understands when there is a need for fire. It understands when there is a need for a cataclysmic shift. So that is what we call an earthquake. It understands how it's supposed to maintain itself. The problem that we have now, specifically as it relates to how they're talking about climate change, is not that the earth is heating up. It's really the fact that we haven't listened to the earth tell us how to navigate itself. And when we don't listen, we destroy. When we don't listen, we limit capacities. When we fail to understand that the tree is having a conversation, but then we throw trash around the tree because we don't feel that it is significant, we are not coming into cooperation or concert with the purpose of the tree. Do you know that the tree planted in specific areas is purposed to clean our air? So when there is a preponderance of pollution, the tree is absorbing what humanity is not supposed to handle in their body. We need to listen to what the earth is saying so that we can understand that we are the earth and the earth is us. It's the very reason why we move throughout the earth and don't know where we are or where we're going, because we refuse to listen to what it is speaking to us. And this is just in a general purpose, a general perspective, right? We're refusing to listen, or we feel that only science or scientists are only allowed, or the only allowed individuals to hear what's going on in the earth, and then we listen to them. As much as I understand the specialty, there is an idea that every person needs to become acquainted with what it is that they're supposed to do in their human purpose, right? And then become acquainted in relationship to how all things exist and how we serve the purpose of the earth and how the earth serves our purpose. You've got to be in this position where you are more in tune with things in you and around you. That's why the scripture, when it talks about first the natural, then the spiritual, we're jumping into spiritual heights, but we miss the lesson because we're never going to learn the lesson from a spiritual place. We have to learn it from natural existence. So we jump the line and then we miss all of these concepts. Have you ever met someone who's been with God all of these years, but yet they don't know God because how we learn him is through nature? Spiritual truths are hidden in nature. They're hidden in nature, and they're waiting for us to ask it the question. Why does the grass grow this way? Why is the grass on this land growing this way? How is it possible for it to rain across the street on the same street and it be dry right here? What do I know about weather systems and weather patterns? What do I know about the barometric pressure? Let's go here. What do I know about my city? What do I know about where I live currently? Because see, this is a vast teaching. It talks about so many different things. And here we'll address this again, the principles space or the principles understanding, right? Every space or area has a principle of development. We tend to typically deal with the principality as if it is demonic or if it is against God. But when I tell you that everything that has been developed in the earth, in the universe, is created to show us God. It's created for us to experiment as God. It is created for us to live as God. The principles are designed to work for you. But if you are looking at the principles and assuming that they're demonic and you're calling them demons and devils, then it is clear to me that you do not understand or have come into relationship with the land that is already been developed to work in concert with you. So that is a challenge for most of us because we will kick the rock instead of speaking to it. Yep. All of you Christians that have been in church for a while, you understand the idea of the kicking of the rock versus speaking to it. It is the idea of when Moses, in his frustration, did not appreciate the source of supply that came through the rock. The representation, of course, was Christ or God, rather, but there was something more symbolic in how he assumed that the rock had no significance. And because it doesn't move like us, because it's not shaped like us, because it's not fashioned like us, we assume that it has no value. But there are principles that govern every space. There are principles in the earth that govern it, that we don't even have to speak to. We just need to understand. It was already etched in the earth's inhabitants as it relates to how it functions. It's the very reason why the land was able to separate itself from the waters. The waters know how high they need to get. They know when it's too low. They know how to find water sources from up under the ground. They know what to do in order to handle itself. As a matter of fact, listen, when we experience or when we pay attention to the fires that take place in California, there was a year that I was out in California at a retreat. And we were in the retreat was in the mountains, and there were fires surrounding us. They let us come in because the fires were not that high at that point. I remember it in San Diego, but there was a point where the fires got so high up on the mountain that they told us that we needed to evacuate. So there was fear throughout the city. There was fear throughout the desert with these fires destroying homes, destroying houses in different places. People were having to wear masks at that time in order to secure their air quality or their personal airspace. But what I realized is that after the fires commenced, and when people thought that there was complete destruction, when the firemen would go through the rubble of the fire that was laid out in the mountains, there was new green grass growing. You know why that's important? Because what we would look at as a bad thing or a demonic thing was the earth itself allowing itself to recreate itself. But we don't appreciate that. You know why? Because we focus on what was lost. But we don't understand the idea or the principle of what needed to be renewed. The earth is doing things, even now today, that we're not paying attention to in order to sustain itself. And if we, what we consider the higher being, which I don't always think we are, right? We just don't pay attention. But if the higher being would pay more attention, the earth would teach us how to manage in its space or manage in an area. So we talk about the principles. There is a ruling principle. Hallelujah. Oh my, I feel Jesus. I feel all of Jesus. I feel all of God in this space. There is a ruling principle in every area. And before you even try to enter into an area, the first thing that you should probably do is introduce yourself to the atmosphere so that it recognizes you and you start to learn and recognize it. That has nothing to do with demonic activity. It has everything to do with the reverence that we need to have as it relates to how we engage this space that he has called us to have, quote unquote, dominion in. It's nice to have all of these things built on a land until the land opens itself up and swallows you up because you did not pick up the fact that the land was not equipped to hold a house, or this land wasn't equipped to hold a 10-story building, or this land wasn't equipped. Your Lord Jesus. Oh man, listen, that'll mess people up all day long, because when we think about other things in that reality, there are often times where we have to say, if I do this, this is not good for the earth, which I'm supposed to inherit. If I do this, this is not good for the land that I live in. Principalities. See that? So we went over that last week. State, office, or authority. The prince of an area. Principal, municipality, the municipal, the principal that manages those different areas. It's important that you understand position or responsibilities of a principal, an individual that governs or manages a territory or a jurisdiction. It is important that you understand that it is not just about your church status. It's not just about your organization status. How do you relate with the land that you're in? The land mass and the land energy. The land mass and the land energy. Y'all see that? Okay, good. I think that's where we ended that last slide. Genesis 45. We've got to understand the land in context to the scriptures. And I want to show you this particular expression. If you are familiar with the scripture, you will know exactly what this expression is going to show you. Genesis 45. I want you to look at it. I'm looking at it, and I'm going to highlight here these bullet points here that we see. I want to start at Genesis 4. No, let's start at number 1. Okay? Because I want to have context around this. I don't want you to just see a scripture and then try to understand it in a false understanding. I want you to understand the context of it. Y'all still with me? Somebody say yes. Yes, I don't want to be hollering up here by myself. I'm not going to holler up here by myself. Say yes. Yep. Yeah, thank you. Here we go. Then Joseph could not control himself any longer. Y'all know where this has started from, right? Joseph's brothers, according to the story, put him in a pit. And they thought he was dead. So Joseph goes through this whole expression of living in the pit, being sold into slavery, put in prison. And then the years go by and he's being developed as a slave or a prisoner, right? It says this in the first verse, then Joseph could not control himself any longer in front of all of those who attended him. And he called out, have everyone leave me. So no man stood there when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers. This is coming out of the Amplified Version. Joseph wept aloud, and the Egyptians who had just left him heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, is my father alive? But his brothers were speechless, for they were stunned and dismayed by the fact that they were in Joseph's presence. Why? Because they thought he was dead. They thought that he had lost his life. But here's verse 4. It says, and Joseph said to his brothers, pay close attention here. I want you to pay close attention here to this, okay? And Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer to me. And they approached him, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me ahead of you to save your life and to preserve our family. Okay? Wonderful. His life is saved, his brothers' lives are saved, and his family's life is saved. The next part tells us how. Okay? It says this in Verse 6, for the famine has been in the land these 2 years. And there are still 5 more years in which there will be no plowing and no harvesting. You know what Joseph is saying? He's saying, listen, I've been watching. He was the one that interpreted the dream, right? He was watching the land dry up. And as a result of this famine coming into the land, and as a result of the preparation through the dream, they decided not to plow and not to harvest any of the land until the famine was lifted. Y'all see that? This is the reason why he can tell them that this famine has been in the land so far for 2 years, and there's still 5 more years that we have to contend with. So there is no plowing and no harvesting. So there is no planting. There is no receiving. There is no seed in the ground. There is no harvest. And they had committed to that because there was going to be this famine for 7 years, right? So the story before this tells how they siphoned off food and sustenance in order to last them through The famine. Okay, a couple scriptures before, you'll be able to see it. That's how Egypt survived the famine. Okay, I just want to catch you up there. Verse 7 says, God sent me to Egypt ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on the earth and to keep you alive by a great escape. What's the escape, God? Verse 8 says, so now it was not you who sent me here, but God. He understood his purpose. He was mad at the fact that he was in prison, but he understood it now that he's on the other side of it. Watch this. Pay close attention. God sent me here to preserve you all. He sent me ahead of you. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Somebody just said that to me yesterday and it just came back to me. There are times where God will send you ahead of someone in order to prepare a thing. I hear that all the time. Heard it again recently. Okay, so verse 8. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh. He has made me. Y'all see that? God has made me a slave, a father to Pharaoh. That's not where we're going to focus in this text, but I want you to highlight it. You need to spend some study time there, understanding how a slave, an imprisoned person, becomes a pharaoh or a father to the authority of that land. Okay? Verse 9 says, hurry and go up to my father and tell him, your son Joseph says this to you. God has made me Lord of all of Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. Verse 10, pay attention. You shall live in the land of Goshen, the best pasture land of Egypt. I just said to you that the famine has been in the land for 2 years, and there are still 5 more years in which there will be no plowing and no harvesting. They're in the midst of a famine, but Joseph says that you're going to live in a place that is the best pasture of land of Egypt. Y'all see that? How does the famine, where there is no flourishing, that's what you just said, but now you're getting ready to send us to a land that is the best pasture of land in Egypt. Does that make sense to anybody? Yes and no. It makes sense to me, and you should be close to me. This is what it says. You and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks and your herds and all you have, there I will provide for you and sustain you so that you and your household and all that are yours may not become impoverished. For there are still 5 years of famine to come. Listen, can I help you with this? I want you to understand that this was just not about Joseph, but Joseph in his position of being ruler or over all things except for Pharaoh's house, right? He was ruler over all things. He watched the land dry up. And yet there was some working in the land that was being done. Otherwise, Joseph wouldn't have been able to say that I'm going to send you to the place that is the best land of Egypt. Why would he send his father or his people to a space that is just going to be dry? They could have just stayed close to the palace, right? But he sends them to this space because as a slave, he had been working the land. He knows what the land looks like. He knows what the land or how the land is responding. This was just not about Joseph, his brothers, and his fathers. And his father. There was a position that God meant for them to inherit, and the land was a part of the equation. It was the best land. So watch this, because this is vitally important. He sends them to the best land of Egypt called Goshen, right? And so it proves to me that people can prosper in a space that there is famine. That's why people can look at the same space and have different experiences. What you hate, I could love. What is closed up to you can be open to me. What you lose, I can gain, because whatever area of the land that God has assigned to me, if I've been assigned to it, it is assigned to produce for me. Joseph, glory, yeah. Joseph, in his stewardship, knew he had to review the land in order to know where to place them in the land. Yep. And I believe that there was a word over Goshen. I know people are preaching Goshen as if God is going to send people into places, and wherever you are, God is going to bless. But you've got to register that there are certain assignments of a particular land, and there is no way that if a land is dry, it is possible that a land that is dry can produce for you, but it may not bring you water, but it might produce something else for you based off of its assignment to you and your assignment to it. I believe that the highlight here is that Joseph was able to register the different segments in order to allow out portions that would be more promising or fruitful for other people versus other people. So he was able to review the land, this land, and say, not call it a famine land, but he calls it the best pasture. Do you know what pastures do? Pastures feed livestock. Pastures are full of the necessities for animals to be able to graze in. Look at the terminology here. You've got to be really intrigued by how he sets them up to have the best portion, even after they put him in a scenario that was not as pleasing to him as he would have liked. Who would have wanted to be in a pit? Nobody. Who would have forgiven those who put them in a position where they now become a slave? Most people wouldn't. But Joseph, after years of development, processing, he becomes an agriculturalist. Listen, I'm telling you that even as he was able to interpret the dream was one part, but there was a relationship with the land that he had to develop in order to interpret the dream successfully or correctly. Why do I say that? I'm saying that because there are oftentimes that dream interpreters cannot interpret a dream successfully because they don't have enough exposure to bring the correct terminology to what is happening concerning a dream. So we will be missing pieces. Yes. That's why you've got to be very comfortable. You've got to become very careful about your exposure, your expansion, your reach, in order to understand the things concerning you, your purpose. It cannot be just about you dressing yourself up. When you are called to this, then you've got to manage the things that you will be positioned in. And if you cannot do that, then the land will swallow you up because you haven't had an appreciation for it. Do you get that? What did the palace include? The palace included land and livestock. Joseph was a manager. He was a manager of land and livestock. The only way that he knew that Goshen was going to be a vitality place was for him to observe, survey, work the land. He was the one that was giving orders. So imagine that he was cutting out a space. He didn't know that he was cutting it out for his family, according to the scripture, because he didn't know that they knew that he was still alive. He didn't know where they was coming from. They didn't know that he was going to be there. It just so happened that they were sent to Egypt because every other place had dried up. Joseph spent years in prison, servicing the palace and servicing the land. Servicing the palace, servicing the land. Servicing the palace, servicing the land. It's why he knew that Goshen was a place of abundance. In Egypt, there was obviously pockets of famine space, or majority of famine space, but there was one pasture that was purposed as the best pasture within the land. You're going to live here. I'm going to send you here. Joseph knew the inner workings of what was taking place concerning the famine and what the land needed. Yes, he had to learn the land. It's the only way that he could manage and assign and give portions to individuals. In this particular scenario, he was giving the choice land or assigning the choice land to his family. Yeah. Look at verse 9. It says, hurry and go up to my father. Tell him your son Joseph says this to you. God has made me Lord of all of Egypt. Come down to me. Do not delay. Verse 10, you shall live in the land of Goshen, the best pasture of land in Egypt. And you shall be close to me, you and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks and your herd, and all you have. Amazing. He's telling him that his livestock, listen, you're not going to have to want for anything. Your cattle's not going to have to want for anything. Your livestock is not going to have to want for anything. They'll be able to graze in what? Pasture. And you will be sustained in the best pasture of the land. I can imagine the geological implications that Joseph had to understand about this particular place. You can't just understand it by observation. And this is why we have to really, really appreciate our forefathers or our ancestral understanding or our ancestral spiritual reality. Why? Because there are things that we understood just by the atmosphere of how the earth moved, how close the moon was, how far the sun was. We were able to read the stars, and those things informed how we understood the land. How we treated the land, when rain was coming into the land, when there was a storm coming. Listen, if nothing else, the scriptures were an astronomical experience of individuals being able to interpret objects within the universal sphere that informed them of what the land was saying. So it was important to them to be able to read the stars. It was important to them to be able to read the universe and the planets that they could see. It was important to them to be able to see where the moon was in order to determine and tell time. Because if you couldn't, you would lose your ability to navigate. Oh my, yes, God. And what we do now is because we don't necessarily need those systems or desire those systems, we suggest that they are no longer necessary or they're demonic in nature. We don't know how to read it. As a matter of fact, watch this. Astrology and astronomy are cousins. Astronomy is the science of what we see in the universe. The astrology is the passion of that science. Listen, I want you to understand that clearly, because when we start to talk about reading of the stars, there are our Eastern religions, people like Buddhists, who study and pay attention to the land, to the terra firma. They pay attention to the atmosphere around them. They pay attention to star activity. They look at the inner lining of the stars and the planets in order to understand the nature of things and the systems of things and how things are moving. We start to talk about the age of Aquarius by understanding planetary alignment and star alignment. The reason why we don't honor astrology like we continue to honor astronomy is because somebody in their era added the word divination to it. And as soon as that looked like it was going to have more influence over religion, it started to segue. People started to assume that astrology was a demonic force that only influenced or released the powers of darkness. But before there was darkness, beloved, there was light. It was all light. It was all information. It was all revelation. It was all given to us for access so that we could understand how God in his splendor have created all things. We are from it and it is from us. We are living in a circular expression of it being a part of us and we a part of it. And when you miss that lesson, you start to side-eye things that are important for your understanding. Okay? See that? We don't have to fear science. Any level of science. You need to understand. You need to understand it. You don't need to cast it out. You don't need to cast it down. You need to understand it. Somebody say that. I need to understand it. I need to understand it. I need to understand it. There was another segment of scripture in Genesis 35. I want you to see it. This is what we talk about in the whole reality of, I want to show this to you as well. Where am I? It's not letting me do it. Okay, there you go. I want to go to Genesis 35. If you like the scriptures, you'll like this one. I need to understand it. Yes, Bree. I need to understand it. Last week when I was feeling ill, I think I told you about this, but I'll share it with other people. One of the things that I understand about my body and even the migraines that I experience is that one aspect of them is stress related. If I am under stress and I start to get unbalanced, migraines hit my space, right? But there's another aspect of it that is weather related. And the weather relation is the barometric pressure of the earth. Barometric pressure of the earth. When the barometer drops, then it means that the atmosphere, the pressure in the atmosphere gets strong. More than likely there is a storm, if not a big storm, that is getting ready to enter into the particular area where the barometric pressure drops. The higher the barometric pressure, the clearer the air is. But when it drops and it drops fast, more than likely there is a storm coming, whether it is a big rain system or whether it is a hurricane if you live on the East Coast. Why is that important for me? It's important for me because my earth responds to what's happening in the earth. I'll say that again. My earth is responding to the things that's happening in the earth. What does that look like? When the barometric pressure drops, it creates pressure everywhere, including the human body. So when the barometric pressure drops and it drops fast, my head starts to hurt. I start to swell. My ankles start to expand. I start getting dizzy because there is an extra weight that I cannot see that is putting pressure on my body. Most people feel the same thing, but they don't know how to register it because they won't study science. I know now how to handle it by doing what? Turning up the air in the house in order to raise the barometric pressure because I need the weight. Glory to God. I need the weight to lift in order for me to have balance. Yes, God. See, there's an understanding that we come into now when you register how you're related to the earth and how the earth is related to you. When I got that understanding, I started understanding weather systems, and I didn't need the news now to tell me when it was going to rain. I didn't need the news now to tell me when there's going to be a heavy cloud cover. When I tell you that when God gave me that understanding, I started to see our ancestral line, and I understood why the sun god was what they called the God that navigated the weather systems and weather patterns. They had the wind God. They had the God of the waters. That's how they could describe what was going on. We had modern day meteorologists. We had them in our ancestral line. They were just ancestral geologists. They knew how to register time. We appreciate that with the sons of Issachar, but we don't appreciate it with our African ancestry. What's the difference here? What's the difference in understanding that we have a measure of spirituality in many different places places outside of Christianity that we should not ignore just because some people don't like what it looks like. You got to be in a position that all things are spiritual because all things are nature. You got to understand it. And when you get that lesson, you will then be responsible. You will then be trusted with being able to manage the land, because you'll understand that that management is necessary for your very life and the lives of other people. Hear me when I tell you that the land has a voice, and it has been speaking and speaking for generations. In some kind of way, we've lost the language of the land, but I promise you, I want to help us get it back, because if you don't get it back, you will wander this land aimlessly, almost like in a wilderness. You have no idea why you're in it. You have no idea what you're supposed to do with it. And then you'll be in places fantasizing about what you want to be and what you want to do in these different aspects, but you have no idea of the principalities that live in those areas, or have understanding of what each land is called to produce. You'll be lost in it. Yes, you'll be lost in the land because you don't understand it. Listen, I want us to get back to root systems. Let us say to every system that has spoken negatively about our ancestral heritage and what we do and how we do it, that it is a lie. It is a lie that has been influenced by control. It is a lie that has caused us to miss out on so many things. It is a lie that has made us fall asleep. But people of God, it is time to wake up and understand every place of you, not just one form of you. Your speaking in tongues is not relevant here if you can't understand what the trees are trying to say to you. Your speaking in tongues is not relevant here if you can't manage the water systems. It is not relevant here if you don't understand the totality of your godness and how you are called to navigate it. It is not relevant. It's not relevant. It's not relevant. It only edifies you. And see, I think that's been the problem. We have been so concerned, overly concerned about us. Nope, I'm not saying to have self-focus is selfish. I'm calling us to have balance. We have been overly concerned about us, that we have failed to look at the dimension of us and understand how we exist in comparison to all things that exist. Watch this. Let me go back. You see this slide right here? And I'm almost done. We've got an epidermis, we've got a middermis, and we've got an endodermis, right? We've got 3 levels. What does that sound like to you? It sounds like the dimensions of us. This is showing an earthquake. It's showing it where it happens at every level. These have 3 dimensions, right? Exo is what we see. Endo, and then another name. I just said it and I completely forgot it. There are 3 dimensions here. What does that look like? What does that sound like? It sounds like us, humans, with our dimensions. There's a lot of nature that is teaching us. There's a lot of nature that is teaching us. There's a lot of nature that is teaching us. Let's read Genesis 35. Genesis 35 verse 1. Y'all get it? Y'all still with me? Somebody say yes. Just scream it so I can hear it. Yes, 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 yes. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Y'all still with me? I want you to get this. I want you to get this. Somebody's probably saying, you know what? Why is she talking about this dirt like this? That's the point. I'm talking about this dirt just like this. That's the point. That is the point. That is the point. I want you to be able to see high so that you can experience in your locality the things that God intended in the bigness or the macro experience. There is a micro experience that we're supposed to have, and that requires understanding of all things. Look at this scripture, Genesis 35. I'm almost finished. Give me 10 minutes.
Then God said to Jacob, y'all got that scripture, Genesis 35. I want you to have it. I want you to have it. Then God said to Jacob, go to Bethel and live there. This is what he tells him. He says, and make an altar there to God who appeared to you in a distinct manifestation when you fled years ago from Esau, your brother. Then Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, get rid of your idols and your images of foreign gods that are among you, and ceremonially purify yourselves and change into fresh clothes. Then let us get up and go to Bethel, and I will make an altar there to God. Watch this. We're going to Bethel. And this is how he signifies that the land is Bethel. You got to realize that the land was named something else. But as a condition of Jacob's experience, he renamed the land. And when you have the authority to rename a land, it starts to produce its new name. Did y'all get that? It starts to produce under its new name when you have the understanding that you can rename it. You can reframe it. You can take a barren land and make it fruitful if you will work the land. Did y'all get that? This is what he tells them. He says, then let us get up and go up to Bethel. Bethel, Bethel, and I will make an altar there to God. Why? Because he answered me in the day of my distress and has been with me wherever I have gone. Jacob says, I moved about. But there is a recognition that I need to make in this land because of what happened in this land. Woo! Yeah, this land that I'm talking about, Bethel, was named originally Luz, which is the land of almonds. But God, so Jacob, if you read more of the text, Jacob had y'all remember the story of him wrestling with an angel? Rather, we interpret that him wrestling with himself in his different character state. He moves from one character to another character. He was running away from his brother, but God speaks to him there. This land of Luz is now renamed the land Bethel because this is where God spoke to Jacob and changed his nature. So in turn, Jacob is renaming the land or renaturing the land. Listen, and when you understand that you have that kind of authority and you've been trusted with the understanding, you will then have the power to rename or renature your land. But you don't have authority to do it when you don't understand the land that you're in. You don't have the authority to renature a land just to serve your individual pleasure. You've got to renature a land when you understand that the purpose of the land has been prostituted or reconditioned and it no longer serves us and brings fruit. So they gave Jacob, verse 4, all of the idols and images of the foreign gods that they had, and rings which were in their ears, worn as charms against evil. And Jacob buried them under the oak tree near Shechem. And they journeyed. Right? Is this what I wanted to say? Yeah, I think so. There's something else that I saw in this particular scripture. Okay, verse 13, here it is. Then God ascended from Jacob in the place where he had spoken with him. Jacob set up a pillar, a memorial, a monument in the place where he had talked with God, a pillar of stone, and poured a drink offering of wine on it. He also poured oil on it to declare it sacred for God's purpose. Listen, let me keep reading and then I'll say what I'm going to say. So Jacob named the place where God had spoken with him Bethel, meaning the house of God. Yep. So there's so many things that we could do with this, right? There's so many places and things we could speak to this about, but I'm going to stop right there. He renamed the nature of it. I want to use that in the context of what we're talking about right now. Last slide. So dominion suggests, and I want you to see this, dominion suggests to me that it is not just rulership. Because we've got a lot of people walking around with authorities, declaring authorities, but have no understanding, which means that no authority manifests. Dominion is cooperative. When I understand the nature of the thing that I am called to have authority over, there is no reason for dominion in the sense that I have to lord over it. I begin to now walk in concert with it. That's why the union of husband and wife is so interesting, because at some point the same scriptures talk about them having dominion together, or moving or walking in the grace of life together. There is a submission that comes because of understanding. That's what true dominion is. It's not about rulership. So here's what I'll say to everybody tonight. Empty words. Your word authority, the reason why you're not seeing manifestation in those particular areas is because you're not aligned with yourself, number one, and you're not aligned with the earth that you're called to have cooperation with. So there is no way that your word space, you executing authority with your mouth, will bring you the results that you're looking for if you have not understood the necessity of cooperation. The necessity of dominion being an understanding as a first rule. How do I understand what I'm supposed to have dominion over? Listen, oh my God, this thing is so good. It's exploding in my mind, because watch this. Whatever you eat, whether you're a vegan, whether you're a meat eater, whatever, do you not already know that even if you're a fish eater, right? The fish understand that on the level of food chain that they're at, that they need to submit to the fact that they may be consumed. Everything about what we are living in our existence as understands that innately. It is the thing that is eating the fish that doesn't understand that. We just automatically say, I'm just going to get me a piece of fish. But had not the fish innately understood that it had to submit to the principal rule of itself, you wouldn't have fish to eat. Lord have mercy. Woo! Oh my God. You got to get that principle in your soul. You got to understand that there are ideologies that are listed in the existence of everything that exists that will tell you what it's here for if you would just take the time to pay attention. If we would take the time to pay attention, we would understand we're the ones that's struggling with what we're called to do. The earth is not. The sea is not. We are. Dominion suggests that understanding needs to be the first rule. Understanding is relational. If you can't relate to it, you won't understand it. If you can't understand it, you won't have dominion over it. It's a waste of time, waste of energy. You might as well just say, well, God, I'm going to give you your authority back. No, he doesn't want you to take it back. He just wants you to have more steps. He wants you to understand that the heart of yourself, the king, needs to search out more matters, that you need to search out more understanding regarding what it is that you're supposed to be in relationship with. How dare us want to be masters of dominion or masters of authority and have no understanding of what it takes in order to manage the land. That's why Adam was told, you will till this ground. You know what he was really told? You will have to understand it in relationship so that you can master it. If you're going to master it, the working is going to be hard now because you're going to have to do it with your own hands. But he never took back his authority. He just required him to learn it a different way. Oh my God. In order to have a space of dominion, you have to have an understanding of the land and the land mass that you have assumed authority over. I say assumed because, again, most times we declare a thing but have no authority. We are not the principle of it, and therefore we just grabbing, blabbing, proclaiming, screaming, yelling, hollering. God gave me this. I received that. I possess that. Lay your hands on the vehicle. I do that. Do you see how frivolous all of that becomes? When you don't have understanding of the very basic things that you live in. You don't have to lay your hands on the car. All you've got to do is go buy the car. You don't have to lay hands on the house. All you've got to do is go buy the house. We don't understand our dominion space, which is why we should not have it if we're not going to take the time to understand and be in relationship with the land. The only reason why individuals do not gain authority is because they don't understand what the thing that may require dominion. I'll say that again. Let me say it slower because I typed this so fast I don't even understand what I just said. The only reason why individuals do not gain authority is because they don't understand the actual thing that they're trying to have dominion over. That's how I should have said that. In other words, when I see something that I like, you can't just speak to that thing. You've got to understand the system of why that thing exists. You got to understand the system of how you obtain it. So think about it this way, and we're going to close. If you want to buy a house, right, you look at the house and say, I want that house. You know what you got to understand? You got to understand inspections. You got to understand the land that it's on. You got to understand financing. You got to understand how you can manipulate money in order to make sure that you have the proper investment in order to secure. You got to understand mortgaging. You got to understand the banking system. You got to understand FHA. You got to understand all of those things and how those systems work in order for you to obtain that one thing. But we just lay our hands on the house and say it's mine. No. Am I provoking people to grow up? Yes. Because you can really have whatever you plan for. And I'm not talking about planning as budget. I'm talking about planning as mentality. You can have whatever you plan for because God intended for you to have dominion. You just have not worked to have it yourself. You have not worked to have it yourself. And the only reason that you don't have what you want is because you are standing in your way of understanding what is necessary in order for you to have what you want. So here's the question. Does it really require dominion? Or does it really require cooperation? Does the land really require dominion? Or does the land really require you to get down on your face, lay in the dirt, and listen for the sounds that come up from the grass? I promise you, that Surfside attack here, and I'm finished there, that Surfside attack bothers me to this day because somebody knew that that land wasn't suitable to build on, and they did it anyway. That's what we call manipulation. They built on the land, and they should not have. And that land, in 40 years, opened itself up and swallowed that building. This is what happens when people who know determine that they'll take the risk and say whoever is lost, that's just a part of the risk. That's why we need God people in control. You mean to tell me that church is the only way we express our God nature. Please tell me that is not the only way that God has his only existence in the world. Because if it is, we are a messed up people. We need some people with integrity who are also geologists. We need some people with integrity who also are building inspectors. We need people with integrity who will walk the front lines and won't manipulate things because of the dollar in order to make sure that things are done well. And these people just cannot be sitting in political offices making deals. They need to be people who have an understanding and an appreciation of God's land and God's people. Woo! Last week, I'm finished. I'm going to stop there. Last week I got offline and I started to, and here's an assignment if you want to take it on. Wherever place you live or whatever place you're trying to go to, I started looking up the city. I started looking up Florida City, the motto of the city. I started looking up Homestead, the motto of the city. I started looking at the history of the cities. What created these cities? How did they come into existence? Whether I live here or whether we just grow Evolution Church here, I want to know what the underlying principle is. Because we could reach people all day long, but if we don't check the underlying principle, we will always be under influences that we know not of. Yep. That's why it's important and it's very critical for you to even be connected. You ever be in a position, watch this, you ever be in a position where you go into an atmosphere and you go in with the greatest of spirits, but because somebody is deeply depressed, it changes how you experience that atmosphere. But because you don't know the depression and you don't know that that's the ruling principle, you start to submit to depressive ideas yourself. You start feeling suicidal and you never felt suicidal. You didn't even know why you're thinking about killing yourself or losing your life. You ever experienced that? Most of us have. Most of us have been in places where we have not understood that energy is just as powerful as the physical things that we see, and they are ruling influences. So if something is built on something, I don't care how much you try to make it different, the ruling principle is always going to show its head at certain times. That's why America right now is having a hard time getting away from the slavery idea or race issues or racism. Why? Because they have not rooted out completely that underlying principle. So we could have good seasons and people will start merging and working together and forming relationships. And then all of a sudden that principle raises its head again. It's not a demonic principle. It's just a principle that was built as or built within the foundation of this country's existence. That's why it continues to live until somebody who has the authority says that we need to renature this place. We need to renature this country. We need to renature this existence. So this no longer continues to live. Principles live through generations. Principles live after you die. Principles continue to live until you address it, and not only address it, but tell it, rule it out, and tell it it no longer can exist, and renature it. That's land assignments. I can make that whole statement work towards you. I can show you how it's affecting you. I hope that you are expanding your mind enough to start to see the parallels? I could show you, but this is not about you tonight. This is about the land and what you can do in order to honor and appreciate the existence that God put us in. Whew. I'm telling you, if you would do better about this land would do better about you. If you would come to understand all things exist because God made them, this existence would do better for you because you understand it. You won't try to overrule it. You won't try to under appreciate it. You will understand. There are certain things, there are certain lands that will never produce anything, and it was designed to be that way. The desert is supposed to be deserted. Listen, it was designed that way. And so instead of changing or having to change its nature, you've got to understand its existence first. And then you'll know if it needs to be changed or not. Some things don't need to be renatured, and some things do. But you will never get that done without appreciation of it. You'll never get it done without appreciation of the land. You'll never be able to get your slot of land. You'll never be able to get your lot 46. I think that was the lot for this house. Before it was a building, it was a lot. We got pictures of the slab. On the GPS, it still shows up as a slab. It shows up as a lot. And what I tell you, listen, this is what we did. Our spirit dad came with us. We came to this house. I came to visit this house every day while they were building it, and I watched it. I watched them build this house. We came every day, and we would walk around the outside, and we would walk inside. We laid our hands because the nature of our house needed to have the nature that we wanted. I don't care about the builder's intention. I cared about the nature that we needed. And since God gave us authority, you know how he gave us authority? He gave us authority when we signed the papers. He gave us authority when we exchanged the money. He gave us authority when we sat down and went through thousands and thousands of pages of mortgage papers. That was our authority. We put oil in the backyard, and we laid hands in the walls before they painted. I can tell you every space that we renatured. I can tell you where we poured the oil in the ground, front and back. Before they put the brick in the driveway, there is oil there. Listen, I'm telling you, because we did not need this land to shake, because it would shake the building. We needed the land to be strong in order to stand tall for us. Now, there are people in our complex that had crazy issues with their houses. I tell you what, we have had none. 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 We've had none. Now, the house will get older and there will be issues with the home over time. I understand that. That's just the law of what happens with deterioration. Don't expect to not have maintenance. That's just dumb. You will. But I'm telling you now that there is a grace that protects the very things that we can't even see. And we prepare ourselves. We put money aside. We have money stored up in order to manage and work in cooperation with what we've obtained. That's how I'm relating that to you. If you want it to be personal, let it be. But if you are an individual that has grand leadership, God has called you to grand spaces. He's called you to govern. Then governance will require you to understand what you are standing in the midst of and why you're called to govern it. And the land is a huge space. Do not neglect the land for the sake of the people. And do not forsake the people. Do not neglect the people for the sake of the land. All of it works in concert. I am finished. Come on, shoot your questions, thoughts, comments. It's already 8:28. I'm late. Questions, thoughts, comments. Thoughts. Go. Anybody. Everybody. What'd you get? Woo. If you want to see the scriptures, Genesis 35, Genesis 45, and Genesis 35. They speak to two different concepts, but I think that you'll start to get the point. The Joseph experience is critical for so many reasons. I just wanted to highlight a particular reason here about his stewardship, his scientific understanding, and how he may not have known what he was holding that land for, but it made sense that when his brothers arrived, he knew exactly where to send them so that they could live. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Are you studying your city? Are you studying your land? You are land as a human, yes, but the land that you stand on, have you been studying it? When you start to study it, how are you impacting it? Or do you just hate it? The land will never return to you if you don't love it or if you don't understand it. I'll give you a few more seconds for questions. It's 8:30, so this is a good time to end. Anybody got any questions, any feedback, any pieces that you want to add to it, anything that you want me to excavate a little bit more, anything that you want me to highlight, something that came to you that would have never come to me that we could explore in life class, anything. I'm in front of you, but that doesn't mean that I'm the only one teaching. You all are teaching too. And I think it's important that you get that. We are teaching and sharing one another. I'm just the only one with the courage tonight to be on screen. That's all. You have to become in tune with the why of your experience in order to properly manage and maximize it. Yes, those things, Oracle, they all align. And I think that people don't really get it. Placement, purpose, and posture. Placement, purpose, and posture. People don't get it. People see one, but then miss their purpose or their posture in it, or can have one and not identify the other things. Yeah. When you obtain anything, it is more than just about you obtaining it. You got to see down the road for legacy. You've got to see down the road about how the land is going to look, how things are going to feel. What are you leaving for the generation? What is this going to look like 50 years down the road? You ever look at old pictures? And as much as our color is vibrant today, 50 years ago, you would have thought that it was the early 1900s because the picture, the color looks like it's so old. Listen, y'all, we want great, 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 great things. We do. But there is a dimensional understanding that we have to come into. I'll say this and then I'm going to put the slides back up for announcements. We are the land. The land is us. We are related to it. It is related to us. We are related to it. It is related to us. My prayer is that you don't ever see the land the same way ever again. I pray that you understand that you have a responsibility dimensionally. What is that? Vertically? No, vertically. Horizontally. That in literal sense that you understand that the land has life and it has a voice. And dimensionally you understand that in this land, we are land. We come from it. We are a result of it. We return to it. It's energy, dust. From dust you came, dust you shall return. It's that in between. While we busy trying to study and understand people. You better get busy trying to understand and learn the purpose of this placement, the purpose of your immediate placement, the purpose of your universal placement, the purpose of the land. Honor it, cherish it. Where you are right now deserves honor. You can hate it all day, but God has given you reward by being in it. Celebrate that. Those of you that want to be a part of the weight challenge, text us, let us know. If you text, then we can send over the information to your phone. If you want it in an email form in the sheet, we can email that to you, so let us know. If you're thinking about it now, you can do that very quickly here in the chat. Otherwise, I anticipate either receiving information at evolution church soflo at gmail.com. That's the church's email. Okay? For the weight challenge, I'm going to put the announcement up, B. We losing weight together. Yes. So we're going to put it up. If you want to receive the information, I do have it available by text. Coach Kira is going to be our accountability for that so that you can walk through that process. We're going to lose weight together. And nobody is telling anything. So she's holding the accountability for all of your weigh-in, your inches, all of that. So you should feel comfortable with her not releasing any of that information to anyone else. I trust her. She's going to do an amazing job holding all of that information to account. So don't feel ashamed if that is your posture. Hopefully the goal is to get us healthier and to help us manage life in this human land body. Okay, so we're going to put that information up there. Let's put it up now so that people can see it. If you desire to give tonight, you certainly can do that, and there will be information that is there for you to do that with. Okay, let's see what else. I'm trying to get the right one. Open, let's see. Oh, yeah. Information page, there we go. There we go. Okay. Yep, so we'll do that. Try again later. Okay, it's not letting me do it. Maybe not. Let's do that again. I did something wrong. There we go. Okay, so we've got that there. Let's see, let's move that along so that B, you can see that. Okay, here's ways to give. If you desire to give, please do that. Every donation is tax deductible, and so you will receive that contribution back as a tax deductible item when you submit your tax contribution. So please do that. Remember that we're online every Tuesday at 6:45 in order to have opportunity for fellowship, and then we start the class at 7. You can send your prayer request to, let me go back, Evolution Church at SoFlo. Yep. Let's do that. Yep. Prayer request. Here's the text number, 786-610-6884. Here's the church's email address. You can send information there. Okay. Got the meditation for the week. It's been the same for the last 2 weeks. We'll update that next week. What's next? If you missed this, you should be mad at yourself. Don't miss the next one. We're doing part 3. This was dope. I'm telling you. Next month, August 21st, you all will know first. Make sure you get in on that. Let's see. Stay tuned. Coming soon. Right? Okay, move that quick. Got that. Coach Kira, weight challenge. We're going to shed the weight. This is her, because she won't be on screen with me today. That's okay, though. We're moving from 3 burgers to 2 burgers to 1 to a junior burger. See that? Here it is. We start August 1st to October 31st. It is not a heavy thing. It's not meant to be overwhelming or taxing. We just want to make sure that we can start to shed some of this weight. And with COVID still being around, we want to make sure that people are healthy. We want to incorporate vitamins and things that will get your weight in check.
So we will do weigh-ins, we will do measurements, and we will be connected to a WhatsApp in order to be accountable to one another, share insights, um, share meals, and all of those kinds of things. So if you want this information, if you send me a text or put it in the chat, I will text it to you. If you want to get it by email, we will get that to you as well. And do I have here Coach Kira's email? Yes, her email address. Please submit your photos for your weight and your measurements to this email address, and it will be in the text or in the document that I send. So if you want it, we will send it to you, and the instructions are clear, and it will be there. You will need to sign up quickly for the WhatsApp connection so that you can be available for the first. And you need to take photos of your weight and your measurements in order to send to her so that she can set the chart and hold everybody accountable. That's it for me tonight. Listen, I so appreciate you all. Appreciate everybody joining us on Tuesday. I'm hoping that you have been benefited by the teaching and that you have been encouraged to understand. What did we start with? Individual purpose, the next community purpose. Now we're starting to expand and see how we impact the land. Now that we're individually getting ourselves together, we're forming community relationships. Now we need to work in the land, but we can't do that until we understand the land. So get to work. Next week, bring me back some of your feedback about the land that you are living in. What do you know about it? How do you understand it? How do you live in it? How do you impact it? Those things will be vital to us. And then we have strategy, prayer points, things that we know that we need to do in order to meditate and pray over a land, specifically because you're there. You are there to be the geologist, the scientist, the navigator of God's purpose. But you can't do that if you don't understand where you're living and why you're there. I am blessed by you. I am so grateful to all of you. I appreciate you so much. You have no idea. Those of you that surrender your tithes and your offerings and your contributions and your gifts, we appreciate you so, so much. We honor you, not just for the gift itself, because it's money. It's the idea and the thought behind why you do it. We appreciate you. And we keep you in our spirits. So pray for us as we travel this week. We will be in touch, of course. Do not, life class will take place next week. I don't know where we're going to be, but it will take place somewhere. So stay connected to the process and we will continue to give you updates. Appreciate you again so much. I'm going to read over the chats and say, have a great evening to everyone who is still online. I just gained, what's that? I just gained weight. You want me to lose it? You guys. God.
It's still sleep. Do you wake her up?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I'll get her in the morning.
Okay.